Probably the only good cop on the force.
I'm not trying to be a bad cop. I was literally not trying to even have any of this happen, and I did apologize.
You apologize, but you're following his directives.
He's a sergeant.
Yeah, but still, like you swore oath to the Constitution.
Right.
And you know what's right and wrong. And sometimes you got to stand up to people.
Listen.
No.
When asked for your information, you have to identify yourself. At this point, we're on a traffic stop together
But you
now.
still have to
A traffic stop is not a crime.
And I asked him, am I being detained? And nobody answered that.
Listen.
Welcome back to the Civil Rights Lawyer channel. You may have seen this footage before showing the arrest of Demetrius Kearns in the Cleveland area of Ohio. Well, there's huge news now, and we're going to talk to his civil rights lawyer, my friend Chris Wiest, about what that news is.
If you don't identify yourself, that is obstruction.
What crime did I commit?
There's no crime, but I'm identifying you. Okay.
Turn around. Because I didn't do anything. Okay, turn around.
I'm cool with this. Okay, I mean, I'm cool with letting him go. I didn't understand.
He's in handcuffs.
And he's being a jerk.
He obstructed. He refused to identify himself. I'm not going to sit out here and argue with somebody for an hour the legalities of it. You can come to court.
Okay.
And then sometimes you see what we have here where there's this effort after the fact to cover up the initial wrongdoing, the bad arrest. We need to charge forward and falsely charge this guy. I mean, that to me screams conscious misconduct, conscious wrongdoing.
So you may have seen Chris Wiest already on some of my videos. I've done several videos with him. He is a civil rights lawyer based out of Kentucky, but he also practices in Ohio, and he's one of the best civil rights lawyers in the country. He gets a lot of interesting cases, and this is one that has already gone viral on the internet, and he has just filed a federal Section 1983 lawsuit just a couple of days ago, and he's here to exclusively explain it to us right now. He's going to break it down as we go through it. All right. Well, I appreciate you, coming on to talk about this. Tell me about this case that you just filed in Cleveland.
So there was a gentleman, Demetrius Kearns, who was driving in September of 2022, and there was a Cleveland Heights police officer who was making a traffic stop. She did not activate her lights and sirens because she was trying to get behind the motorist she was trying to stop before she did that. Her name was Carly Lewis. And cut off Mr. Kearns, who was in the other lane. She then activated lights and sirens, effected the stop. He pulled over because he wanted to get her badge number and her identity to file a complaint against her.
1 second.
Go back. 81 radio, stand by. It's going to be on Mayfield across from the first access road. Send me another unit because another party does not know how to yield to lights and sirens, and he's sitting here reporting me. Say they almost ran him off the road.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Officer Lewis with Cleveland Heights. The reason for the traffic stop is the plates on the vehicle are expired.
Yeah,
not even a big deal. Do you know that guy behind me in the Porsche?
I was trying to hurry up and move over.
You're good. No, you're good. You did the right thing. I put my lights out and sirens. He did not move over.
He was shaken up. She almost caused an accident. She is apologetic at first.
And I'll give you the plate to the other vehicle that's out with the confrontation. I apologize.
You almost ran me off the road.
I initiated my lights and sirens.
I didn't hear anything.
But was your music on? Because I had the lights and sirens on, sir.
Yes, sir.
You apologize.
I apologize.
You're wrong.
He stopped abruptly. Okay, I'm not wrong. The lights and sirens were activated.
You ran me off the road
I did not
almost.
do that, sir. The lights and sirens on my
you apologize.
marked patrol because he stopped abruptly, causing me to stop
And I
abruptly,
almost caused an
causing
accident.
you to stop abruptly.
Right.
And I apologize for that. However, the lights and sirens were on. Okay, the police vehicle is marked. You can clearly see it's a marked patrol vehicle. I initiated lights and sirens. I'm not going to argue, and I'm telling you I do. I'm going to tell you I do apologize that he did stop abruptly. Nobody was wrong.
I'm going to tell you the disconnect, right? So between the public and you as a public servant,
You're just that driver check, okay?
if there's something wrong and you actually did it, all you say, my bad. I'm
And I
sorry.
did. I just
And
said,
keep going.
I said my bad. I said, I initiated a traffic stop in a marked vehicle with lights and sirens.
Right.
If you didn't hear the sirens or see the lights,
I mean, you called back up for your place.
Well, I called back up because somebody was getting out of a cop car.
I think the situation would have resolved itself. And then her supervisor, Naftali Wolf, shows up and escalates the situation and threatens, shows up, knows nothing about what happened today.
I mean, you call backup for your safety, but
well, you don't pull up behind an officer on a traffic stop.
You don't even know what's going on.
You're right, I don't.
So why are you saying that?
Because I'm here, and what you're doing right now is against the law.
Ran me off the road.
Okay, well then you should have pulled over for lights and sirens. She said it on the radio that you didn't yield, and it's on dash cam, I'm assuming.
It's the disconnect, man.
Sir,
I'll tell you what. Let her finish her business, and then we can sit down and talk like
we're
adults.
good. I'm gonna let him go. We're good. I'm gonna let him go.
Yeah.
What? I'm sorry. What was your last name?
My last name?
Yeah.
Why do you need my last name?
Because I'm asking who I'm talking to. You asked me who you were talking to.
You're not, well, not now you're going to be under arrest because what you're doing is illegal.
Listen.
What you're doing is illegal. I can charge you for interfering with
Just give me your last name.
Why?
Because I'm conducting business with you right now.
Where am I free?
You want to be.
10-4. That's not going to
how
be
it
the
works.
drive.
What's your RS?
Stand by.
What's your reasonable articulable suspicion of my crime?
I'm going to get rid of him.
Hold on. I'll explain to you, okay?
Threatens Mr. Kern with arrest. Says he needs to, immediately produce identification. Ohio, of course, has a requirement that if the police are investigating you for a crime, you do have to identify yourself. But unless they have, as you're aware, reasonable articulable suspicion that you've committed a crime, there's no need to identify yourself. And there's clearly established Sixth Circuit case law, which is the federal circuit, that Ohio's in. It's also Kentucky, Michigan, Tennessee, that says, listen, on this Ohio obstruction statute, if you're not being investigated for a crime, you have no duty to identify yourself. And Mr. Kern takes that position. He's like, what's your reasonable articulable suspicion? What did I do?
Am I being detained? Am I being detained?
If you want to be.
10-4. That's
No, that's not how it works. What's your RS?
Stand by.
My RS?
Articulable suspicion of my
Okay.
crime.
I'm gonna
First,
get
okay, hold on. I'll explain it to you, okay? Doing what you're doing right now?
No, sir. She almost ran me off the road.
Okay. Again, you didn't yield to lights and siren. You came out.
She was next to me and stopped and almost ran me off the fucking road. What are you talking about?
Okay, listen to me. You asked my reasonable articulable suspicion. It's not a probable cause.
If you arrest me, you violate my rights.
I don't want to arrest you. We have to ID you.
You're going to violate my rights. That's what you're going to do?
Okay, we have to ID you. You understand that? Yes, we do.
She admits, she's like, I don't think he committed any crime.
Listen, talk to me. Just do me a favor. All I'm asking you,
I'm a private citizen.
just take your hands out of your pocket while we're talking,
Right.
okay? I called for backup, all right?
Yeah.
I initiated a traffic stop. I understand you and I and that gentleman, we all just saw what happened, okay?
Right.
I'm calling for another person because I'm dealing with one person who I don't know who I'm dealing with. And you get out, listen, sir, let me speak. Let me explain to you. I call for another person because I have a man getting out of a car walking towards me. You know how society is. I know how society is. Now listen, I'm asking you to identify yourself so I can let my dispatcher know who I'm out with. If you don't identify yourself, that is obstruction. You are the one that came out.
Obstruction is a secondary crime. What crime did I commit?
There's no crime, but I'm identifying you.
And the supervisor continues to escalate this, eventually placing him in handcuffs.
Okay.
Thank you.
I need your driver license.
Look, man, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to arrest you if you don't identify yourself.
She just said it was no crime.
It is
Listen.
a crime. Obstructing is a
What
crime.
crime?
Obstructing is a crime.
Identify yourself, guys.
She almost ran me off the road.
And then I still have to identify you.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call in for the car. You can arrest me.
Okay, turn around. Put that back.
Because I didn't do anything.
Okay, turn around.
I didn't do anything.
Listen, just all you have to do is
I don't have my ID with me.
Okay, what's your cell phone?
Your date of birth, that's all we asked for.
For what?
Because I need to let my dispatcher know. It's not a big deal.
Mr. Kern had a shoulder injury and, required actually some surgery because of the way that his arm got yanked behind his back.
Okay.
Thank you.
I need your driver license.
Look, man, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to arrest you if you don't identify yourself.
She just said it was no crime.
It is
Listen.
a crime. Obstructing is a
What
crime.
crime?
Obstructing is a crime.
Identify yourself, guys.
She almost ran me off the road.
And then I still have to identify you.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call in for the car. You can arrest me.
Okay, turn around. Put that back.
Because I didn't do anything.
Okay, turn around.
I didn't do anything.
Listen, just all you have to do is
I don't have my ID with me.
Okay, what's your cell phone?
Your date of birth, that's all we asked for.
For what?
Because I need to let my dispatcher know. It's not a big deal. Last name, sir.
Kern, man.
Kern?
You know what happened. Why are you letting him
Listen,
do this?
he's a sergeant.
He's violating my rights.
He is not. He
Have a
didn't
seat. We're going to give you a
identify
ticket when we
yourself.
send you on your way. You have valid driver's license?
Yeah, I do. You violate my rights,
Yeah,
man.
were you getting a ticket for interfering with the traffic?
How did I interfere? She almost ran me off the fucking road.
And you could have pulled off and waited and called.
I did wait when she said wait.
You were out here talking to her. Have a seat.
Mr. Kern, just
Don't
have...
push me,
Have
man.
a seat.
Why are you so full of machismo, man?
Dude, have a seat. I'm not putting up with your bullshit, okay? Have a seat.
What's wrong with you, man?
Have a seat.
I'm sitting down.
All the way in.
They arrest him. There's further discussion in the police when he's sitting in the police car between Carly Lewis and her supervisor, where he's like, we got to charge him with something, basically, because otherwise we're in some serious trouble.
If he
he's
checks,
going for obstructing, or he's getting a ticket for obstructing.
I don't.
Is he valid?
I don't know. I'm waiting for the radio to say. What? So this is what happened. That vehicle matched the description of the vehicle from Weird Shit yesterday.
Okay.
I saw it. I initiated a traffic stop.
Okay.
That person, instead of like pulling over, he stopped abruptly.
Okay.
And I'm getting behind him, but he stopped abruptly.
Okay.
This guy was very close to him,
Okay.
and we almost did get into an accident because that driver stopped so abruptly. I did, yes.
He gets a ticket for there's no ifs, ands, or buts about this.
Okay.
He's getting a ticket for
Radio 1, if you need to read back on that, yes, I have it.
Emergency vehicle?
Yes, radio, I do. That's why I provided it.
It was to a Demetrius Raphael Kern. It's a 37-year-old male. He's valid. That's one.
So he gets a ticket, and then he can come to court.
Listen, I don't feel I need to give him a ticket for that. I'm cool with just. Okay, I mean, I'm cool with letting him go. He just didn't understand.
He's in handcuffs.
And he's being a jerk.
He obstructed. He refused to identify himself. I'm not going to sit out here and argue with somebody for an hour the legalities of it. You can come to court.
Okay.
So he gets a ticket for obstructing failure to identify himself.
You guys got a lawsuit
Mr. Kern,
coming.
just hang on.
You got a lawsuit coming.
Listen, let me explain to you. You don't get out of the car yet. The sergeant wants me to give you a ticket for obstruction, okay? I'm not going to do anything else. Listen, he's the boss. He is the boss.
I don't have to refuse if I didn't commit a crime. This isn't a stop and ID state.
At this point, it is a traffic stop because you're out on a traffic stop.
Off the road.
Mr. Kern, we just had that conversation. I did not almost run you off the road.
That Tesla has cameras in it. So you guys are going to pay for this.
That's fine. Mr. Kern, I apologize. I really do. And this is on body cam, alright? This is, the sergeant's telling me to do this, so.
Did I break the law?
When police have to identify you, you do have to identify yourself.
I broke the law. If I broke the law, I have to identify.
Mr. Kern, you got out of the vehicle in the middle of a traffic stop. I understand that. And I needed to identify you.
This is going to be a heavy lawsuit. Cleveland Heights is going to pay me for this.
For what, sir?
Kidnapping, illegal detainment.
No one's kidnapping you.
I'm in the back of your car in handcuffs.
Okay.
I'm kidnapped.
This is not kidnapping. The sergeant placed you under arrest for obstruction.
How did I? You know, like I know I didn't obstruct.
He asked for your information and you didn't give it to him. Listen, I'm going to be, there will be a court date. You and I will both go to it. And our prosecutor's really good and we'll work through it, okay? Listen, I'm just doing what I'm told to do, alright? What do I put for this verbiage? When asked to identify himself, he refused.
So, just for my own, you activated your overrides.
So we're literally here, and I'm coming up because I saw that car. It looked like a car from yesterday's incident.
Yeah.
I ran it. It's expired. I am in this lane. I put my lights on to activate. The guy, instead of like continuing, he like whips over, stops abruptly, and I'm like halfway in between both lanes, and this guy was right behind him. So it did almost cause an accident. Absolutely.
You didn't almost hit him.
No, I was trying to go behind. It would have been a sure clear distance accident. But because of how that guy stopped abruptly, it would have been.
And he stopped and just decided to get out of his.
Well, and he was pissed because we did almost get into an accident.
You didn't almost hit him.
No, all of three of us, it would have been an accident. Yeah, I was going behind the other guy.
And he could have gone down the street.
But the guy stopped abruptly, but he did. Then he got out and he's yelling. He's yelling while I'm initiating. Right. Okay. So I told him, I said, sir, just stand there. Let me talk to him. I'll come talk to you. And he did. But then he was continuous, because that happened, I called for backup. And then he was upset, rightfully so. It was whatever. Why are they assholes? Like, was that necessary? Alright, here's your property.
Hold on, let me get this here.
Sure.
Hey, let's put some on. What kind of cuffs are these, man?
Some janky, rusty ass stuff.
Right.
Do you want to sign or are you going to refuse? Alright, I'm going to give you a copy of it.
You guys violated my rights. You know.
Well, we'll all be in court.
Probably the only good cop on the force.
I'm not trying to be a bad cop. I was literally not trying to even have any of this happen, and I did apologize.
You apologize, but you're following his directives.
He's a sergeant.
Yeah, but still, like you swore oath to the Constitution.
Right.
And you know what's right and wrong. And sometimes you got to stand up to people.
Listen.
No.
When asked for your information, you have to identify yourself. At this point, we're on a traffic stop together
but you
now.
Still have to.
A traffic stop is not a crime.
And I asked him, am I being detained? And nobody answered that.
Listen.
So I did. I covered all my bases.
All the stuff's gonna be typed in the report.
If I was being detained, I had no choice but to give you my ID. That's why I specifically asked.
Yeah.
Am I being detained?
Well, at that point, it's a traffic stop.
But still, if I'm being detained, you should tell me. And if I'm not being detained, I'm free to go. And in the situation.
Well, right now you're free to go.
Yeah.
All right. I hope that you feel better, and I'm sorry that all of this had to happen this way.
You didn't do nothing.
Well, we did. We got into a little accident, almost a middle accident.
You did your job.
And I apologize.
Things happen in life. He came, he violated my rights.
Well, we're going to work through it, all right? I don't think he violated your rights. He wanted you to identify yourself, and you didn't. All right?
You know you swore oath.
Say again?
You swore oath.
I did.
That's all I'm going to say.
All right, Mr. Kern.
Thank you.
I hope that you feel better, all right?
I'm going to the hospital.
All right. You going to go to Metro?
I'm going right there.
Yes, sir.
And so they decide to charge him. About 3 or 4 days later, not long after that, the city prosecutor looks at this and is like, there's nothing here, dismisses the charges. There was obviously video of this. It got viral in, I think, February. And then more recently, obviously, we filed suit last Friday, actually, in federal court up in the Cleveland area. We asserted 2 1983 claims, one for a violation of the Fourth Amendment because of the detention of the plaintiff and then the arrest of the plaintiff. The expansion of the scope of the investigation, gratuitous use of force. So there's 4 different Fourth Amendment issues there. Failure to intervene on the part of Officer Lewis, particularly since she articulated that he didn't do anything wrong, and yet this behavior continued. Brought a Monell claim, which is basically, as you're aware, John, it's a claim against the municipality itself. Those are not always easy to, as you're aware, to establish, because it's not a one-off. It's not just a bad officer. It's a policy and practice claim, effectively. And there were admissions by the mayor when this went viral in February that there was inadequate policies. My client had a meeting with the police chief. There's a recording that we've got where he admits that there's inadequate training. And so, I don't often bring a Monell claim, but I thought the facts established it here. And then because Mr. Kern and everything they did was in reaction to him saying, what did I do wrong? You're violating my rights, etc. I brought a First Amendment retaliation claim as well. And so those are the federal claims. And then a bunch of state law claims that are analogous: civil assault and battery against Wolf, unlawful imprisonment against Wolf and Lewis, civil false arrest against Wolf and Lewis, malicious criminal prosecution against Wolf and Lewis. And then there's a civil liability claim as well under Ohio statutes that we brought against the municipality. So those are the legal claims. I think the facts justify it. And when you look at the officer's behavior, particularly Sergeant Wolf, it's pretty egregious. I'm pretty bullish about punitive damages in this case, too.
I was thinking First Amendment retaliation as well when I watched that footage. What crime did he commit, to begin with?
Right, none. They allege, well, you were obstructing. Well, what obstructing what? Well, you violated the traffic code because you didn't yield to lights and sirens. Well, wait a minute. One, her body camera footage, by the way, does not begin, and we've got that until after the stop has already occurred. She's required to have that, and that activates at the time the lights and sirens are activated. So there's a real disconnect there about when those lights and sirens went on that's inconsistent with her story. that's hugely problematic. But even if she activated it, right? I mean, you have to have some reasonable amount of time to, to see the lights and sirens and then yield. So plainly, he didn't commit any offense. He was cut off. He wanted her identification to file a complaint against her. They didn't like it. This whole thing was retaliatory. And, and frankly, the only thing I can figure out, with this guy, with the sergeant, and the reaction that he has from the outset, which is hostile, antagonistic, doesn't investigate anything. I think that there's a racial animus here. And I say that in part because we open record requested his personnel file, and there were other complaints about his dealings with minority citizens, which suggests that there's an issue with this guy, and it's race-based. And I don't throw that accusation around lightly, but I think the evidence here warrants it, and there's some pattern and practice stuff with this guy. So, and that I think boils down with what we saw in our evaluation of the evidence.
Was there any disciplinary action taken against either of the police officers involved here?
Yeah, I think the sergeant was counseled, was told, bad boy, don't do it again. Plainly, that is effective given the pattern of this guy's, complaints with citizens, which predated this particular incident. And there were a number of them. And this was, again, I will tell you, we open record requested his personnel file. This is not this guy's first rodeo, and it's a problem.
That blows my mind that you can get those through a records request in Ohio. I mean,
yeah,
we can only get those here in West Virginia. Not only can we not get it through a FOIA request, but when we get it through discovery, it comes along with a protective order that severely limits, what we can do with it. I mean, it should be available via FOIA, but our legislature is just beholden to the public safety interest in the state, and they've put all these protections on these police personnel files that nobody else has. Nobody else has, but the police do.
It is insane. I mean, I understand why you may not want to publicize an officer's home address, right? Maybe you want to redact that for officer safety, but the fact that somebody is generating citizen complaints, which goes to a core function of government and the people's ability to scrutinize the government, and you can't get that, that's insane to me. One of the things that really struck me in reviewing this video is where he does the old, I'm going to beat the hell out of you and try and justify it routine with stop resisting when the guy is just sitting there. Stop resisting. I mean, I've seen that before. They do it. They do it whenever they're planning to tune you up. I always look at what is the client or what's the victim of the conduct. What are they doing at the time? Are they struggling? Are they, or is it just like it was in, the music case that we reviewed before? Is it just an officer that's engaged in misconduct trying to cover it up? I think here, plainly, that's the case, especially when you look at the discussion that Lewis and Wolf have about, we got to charge him with something or we're in trouble for the arrest. There's a conscious wrongdoing there.
It'd be interesting to see what happens. And, hopefully you can take their depositions and get some more information.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we do a part 2 video after you've taken some depositions here.
Yeah. Well, we've seen how that goes sometimes. Those are always fun, right? It makes for good TV.
Anything else about this case you think that is interesting or unusual?
The only thing that I think is striking is some of the admissions that they have between themselves when he's in the car already and he's arrested. I think, that there's, like I said, there's evidence of sometimes you're dealing with just what I would call anger in the heat of a moment, where somebody overreacts, and that's bad in and of itself when people's rights are violated. And then sometimes you see, for instance, what we had in Hornback and what we have here, where there's this effort after the fact to cover up the initial wrongdoing, the bad arrest, with we need to charge forward and falsely charge this guy. I mean, that to me screams conscious misconduct, conscious wrongdoing. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you need to award an amount sufficient to deter this, because punitive damages are warranted here under the standard, in an amount that's going to deter not only these officers, but anyone else from engaging in this after the fact. Fundamentally, it's dishonest, right? To sit there and make up false charges, to try and cover up your civil rights violation. Which
who was it that decided to drop the charges? Did you say it was the prosecutor?
It was the prosecutor after reviewing the footage. Yes.
So in Ohio, the cops can just on their own begin the prosecution and get it to the point at which the prosecutor looked at it and decided to dismiss the charges.
Correct.
In West Virginia, anyways, and I'm pretty sure across the country, they will push these cases and just to prosecute somebody so that the cops don't get in trouble. And it's good that they didn't in that case. But just my last video I did here in West Virginia, the prosecutors were pushing a case that was BS just to defend the state police. And thankfully, a judge in that case dismissed it. But prosecutors do it with impunity, and they know that they can't be sued for it. But if they could, I guarantee they wouldn't.
I absolutely agree with you. The absolute immunity that they are afforded, I think, is problematic. And I don't know if you know this, that absolute immunity that they're extends to like administrative agency and administrative agency enforcement action. Like and I see a lot of potential cases in that area. I had a guy call me yesterday where it was an administrative agency case with systemic sort of targeting in Kentucky of minority Asian-owned effectively beauty salons where they've got this, what appears to be a racist inspector going around ginning up these enforcement cases against minorities. And I'm like, and the guy calls me and he's like, I want to sue him. And I'm like, well, that's great, except you got to resolve the underlying issues first, because we've got a Younger versus Harris problem, which is, that's you can't go into federal court effectively and challenge a state court conviction or a state court administrative proceeding, criminally, it's Heck versus Humphrey, but if it's an ongoing proceeding, it creates a Younger issue if it involves challenging it, trying to halt it, et cetera. And so, it is. I mean, it's a thing. That absolute immunity is a thing. It is. I mean, it's pretty bad. It's up there with qualified immunity in my view in terms of just. Actually, it's worse than qualified immunity. At least you could sometimes overcome qualified immunity by showing prior cases that were similar. You could show flagrant unconstitutionality. Like, it could be right on point, and like, you're right, you can't hold them liable. It's an absolute immunity.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it.
Always fun, and then we've got this other matter, right, that we're briefing. So in the Northern District of West Virginia.
Do we have court scheduled, or are we just waiting for a written order? So at that point, we began discussing this other case that we're litigating together up in the Northern District of West Virginia. So you don't want to hear about that right now. But there you have it. Those are the facts of the case. Of a viral video that you may already have seen. This is that video, that case coming to fruition into a federal civil rights lawsuit via civil rights lawyer Chris Wiest, who just told us all about it. And the good thing about Chris is he'll come back again and tell us about it after he's taken the depositions of these police officers and perhaps video depositions that we can perhaps use again. And remember, it was Chris who took the video deposition of that police officer or officers, I think they were troopers in Kentucky, where they got caught lying and one of them was charged with perjury. I did a video or two on that. Now, Chris's his lawsuit, his complaint, I'll go ahead and post it up at the blog. You'll find the link in the description so you can see all of the allegations for yourself. You can get the case number. You can follow along on Pacer. And certainly I'll be doing a follow-up video on this one. We can see it from beginning to end. So as always, if you like going through these sorts of cases, not just looking at the body cam footage, but going over the law, talking to the lawyers, and seeing what happens in the end, then subscribe both here and at the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com. Remember, freedom is scary. Deal with it. I'll see you next time.